All right. Hello, everyone, once again, and thanks for listening to our podcast. We're talking around the whole theme of sustainability, helping companies achieve their targets, and dealing with the roadblocks that really kind of stand in the way. I'm with my good friend Mike Ivy from Cafe Life, who is helping us, as we all know. And today, we just wanted to have a go at maybe even scraping the surface, maybe not even that, of the whole theme of hearts and minds. So, Mike, it's good to have you with us. Thanks for joining in. Um, Let me give you the context for our discussion, Mike, and this is where I really want you to help because everyone that doesn't know, Mike is a specialist in culture development, and so change management certainly in your wheelhouse, right, Mike? And I think when we talk about sustainability, it is really all about changing, firstly, our thinking and our behaviors, the way we do things, right? Even down to what do we put into what bin and, all of those good things, right? So here's my thinking. So, as you know, I've come from an engineering background where we've been installing pretty new, sophisticated technology into companies to help them save power. But it doesn't matter how good the technology is or how attractive the commercial offering is. Over and over and over again, we were met with resistance. Maybe somebody had been the engineering manager for the last 25 years, and the thought is, who is this guy coming in telling him to do this new thing? And it almost goes against logic or even reason that people would resist the very thing that will bring about the sustainable and also make their jobs more secure in the future. And I guess that's the issue of the hearts and mind, right? So let's talk about that. Those roadblocks. What do you think there, Mike?
Yeah. Look, I think what's important almost up front is sometimes, and I can remember years gone by, this phrase being used quite often, you're either on the bus or you're off the bus, get on the ship or get off. And that's a line which we often use in management or within an institution to say we want unity. But the bottom line, I think, is that most people are neither on or off the bus. They've got their own mindset in terms of priorities. And we often think that because we see something a certain way and it's very, very compelling, that others should automatically just come on board with it. And therefore, we begin to threaten them and we begin to say, get on board with this. Now, perhaps we do have the power because we're paying them their salaries. But if you're paying them their salaries and you're using that type of power to try and elicit compliance, we know you've got a long job ahead.
Yeah,
and this is where we need to get into the hearts.
Yeah.
But the heart story means we've got to understand that because it's in your heart, it doesn't mean it's in somebody else's heart, and you're going to have to do the work.
Right.
The big question is, so how do you do that work?
Yeah. No, and I think the danger in any change management is that you go too fast. Someone once said to me, "If you think you're going slow, go slower."
Yes.
I coming from where I used to lead charity organizations, where you're working only with volunteers. And a volunteer, I remember this particular volunteer was on the coffee rota. So this person did the coffee. And you didn't realize, but for this person, this was their world, But as an organizer, you think, oh, no, well, one day we're just not going to do coffee. What seemed like a perfectly rational idea to me, to this person, I was destroying an entire world in existence. And so got this huge disproportionate reaction, right? And that's what I used to encounter bringing new ideas to engineering teams,
Yes.
The same thing, right?
Yeah. And you think about it, say there's a leadership team, an executive group of people, 5, 6, 7 of them, and they're talking in the boardroom the importance of sustainability. They have the song going through their head. And now we take it to other people and we think that an email is going to work. So we've got to, here's the command, or here's what we need to do.
Right.
But people resist commands. They respond. Nancy Klein actually beautifully says this. People resist commands, but they respond to questions. And questions is where we begin to move people more to a heart. But here's the thing about questions. The questions can't be judgmental. The questions need to be open-ended, which allows the person, the other side, to begin to explore.
Right.
And people only change because they themselves change the story that they're telling, not because you tell them a new story.
Right.
And if we want to really get in an organization sustainability to become part of the culture and part of the dance, we're going to have to give and devote quite a bit of time to conversation.
Yes.
And conversation that is not command conversation, but conversation that is inquiry.
Oh, I love
And
it. Yeah, and I love what you're saying. You and I could talk about sustainability, for instance, for hours and hours and hours, and then we expect someone else who's heard about it for the last 5 minutes to engage on the same level that we are, right? And
yes.
It seems insane when you think about it, but that is exactly what we do all the time in an organization. We get really inspired, and then we give such little time to inspiring the organization down, cascading it down, and then wonder why we don't get the buy-in. So I want to just pick up on something you said there, conversation. How do you go about having a conversation? Because I know some conversations are very risky. The minute you mention any form of change, people's backs go up, people get defensive, and everyone wants to walk out the room. Now, I know this is one of your expertise, and we certainly can cover this in more podcasts. But give us the bullet version.
Well, and this isn't a punt for my services type thing, but conversation is going to work best because there's psychological safety and because people feel they can share without a sense of ramifications for what it is that they share. And this is why it's so important to have somebody who is anchoring the conversation, who is creating a safe space so that people can explore. Now, it's not to say that the CEO can't do this, but the CEO or whatever C it is has an investment in another way in the organization. And the advantage of the person who is more detached in bringing the conversation together is that they can create that safety from a place of there's no other consequences to this. Now, some cultures automatically are very good at conversations. They've done that hard work. But for good conversation to take place, people need to be present, not fearing judgment for what it is that they're going to be saying.
Right.
And how the anchor, let's talk about the facilitator as the anchor, how the anchor responds to what people say is probably going to determine whether they're going to say more or whether the next thing they say is going to be said from a very aggressive stance and point of view.
Yeah. So I mean, what we're saying is it's any good conversation needs to be a facilitated conversation, because I think there is skill. One of the biggest boundaries to me bringing new tech into companies was really dealing with the ego of the engineering team. And I say ego tentatively because, I think we all have them, right? And we all have self-beliefs. And I remember having to manage these conversations very carefully, so that everyone feels heard and valued and brought on board, Powerful skills that I think anyone involved in sustainability at least needs to understand. And at best, they need to have a budget to bring people like yourself, facilitators, in for this conversation, if we're going to see any meaningful change, right?
Yeah, and the rewards are great because you can't legislate hearts. You can't give a rule book and say.
So say again, you can't legislate hearts.
You can't. No, you've got to take people with you, and so if you think about it, here we are. There's a group of people in the organization that totally get what needs to be done. There's two things that they need to do then to bring other people on board. One is make it so compelling for those that are already there so that they remain excited. And then secondly, create on-ramps for those who aren't. But the on-ramps can't be commanded. The on-ramps are invitations. Yes. But how do we invite people? We involve them, we hear them, we listen to them. we invite them to the table. And Dave, I know you are probably the most avid Stephen Covey fan that I know. And you've spoken about him over and over again. And I think it's that the fourth principle where he talks, seek first to understand before being understood. When it's coming to something like culture that's engaging sustainability and climate change and those sorts of things, you can't rush it. And
100%.
Disciples one by one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those two, love Stephen Covey, those two principles, seek first to understand before being understood, and always find the win-win.
Yes.
Those two work together so nicely. That the win-win is that we build a sustainable company that ensures our jobs for the future and the planet in which we live, right? That's the win-win. And then we work backwards from that big idea. We work backwards into okay, what is the so what for me now? So to summarize, I think it's been a great few minutes. Unless we address hearts and mind, unless we have a change management process in place, unless we engage outside facilitators like yourself, unless we're willing to go slow enough to win the hearts and minds of the organization, then really these goals, these targets we have, we're not going to be really met. And so we need to have a roadmap for that, right?
Yeah, and lovely final little slogan. In order to buy in, I need to weigh in.
Ooh, and nice.
And I think if you talk to most people about climate change and sustainability, there will be passive commitment by most people.
Nodding assent.
Yeah, because it makes sense. But passive commitment isn't going to help us, because the moment there's a greater urgency, I'm going to push the sustainability agenda down. And I'm sure you probably saw that in the boardrooms, even Dave, when something's more important than the sustainability. But if I can contribute, weigh in so that I can buy in, it begins to move us from the passive to the active commitment. And that's what we want, active commitment when it comes to sustainability. Only can happen because of the heart.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be doing some more workshops. We're planning some workshops in June in Cape Town, where we're going to invite sustainability managers, anyone keen on sustainability to come. And we're going to deal with these topics of hearts and minds. And we'd love to hear from you soon. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll be speaking to you soon.